Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle is not always snappy or stylish. It does not take full advantage of its video game premise, is quite predictable, and even defangs the sinister jungle from the first film. But it made me really care. With good, old-fashioned character interactions and development, fun performances, payoff, and a life-affirming message. Frankly, I'm surprised by its restraint and heart. This review will contain Act 1 and 2 spoilers. A timestamp for my rating and pros-cons chart is in the description. Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle is a sequel to 1995's Jumanji, a movie about a cursed jungle-themed board game with the results of the players' turns frighteningly affecting the real world. To stay relevant and get played with, the board game is forced to magically transform into an Atari video game console in the age of PlayStation. Fast forward to 2017, and 4 troubled high schoolers find the video game while cleaning up their school's storage closet for detention. A few button presses and ominous drum beats later, and the kids are sucked into the game's jungle. Trapped in the wild, and in the bodies of the adult characters they selected, they must work together to beat the game and free themselves from Jumanji. To start off, this movie didn't need to be a Jumanji sequel. If anything, the name will only invite criticism because of its inconsistencies with the first film, particularly the titular jungle itself. All of the animals and creatures that were unleashed from the board game in the original Jumanji were far more intimidating and scary. Monkeys with firearms, vicious lions, deadly living plants, crushing tentacle vines, large venomous spiders, and human-hunting poachers are all missing from Jumanji Welcome to the Jungle. Despite the more mature PG-13 rating, this sequel is more bright, lighthearted, and family-friendly. And I was okay with that. If you are a huge fan of Jumanji 1, then you might be disappointed that this film claims to throw us into the same jungle in which Alan Parrish had a much rougher time surviving. Back in Alan Parrish's day, the whole jungle was out to get you, and there wasn't no respawns. Despite not being as frightening as the original, I was pleasantly surprised by Welcome to the Jungle's slower pacing. From the trailers, I had expected the movie to be nothing but quick-cut jokes, action, and loud noises, with very brief, real-world bookends. But the prologue actually took its time introducing the young cast and getting a taste of their daily lives and relationships, even throwing in a reference to a more adult kids movie from earlier in the year. Though they are familiar caricatures, the kids are pretty decent performers, and it's a good sign when I bother to remember their characters' names in the first 10 minutes. I appreciated that the film properly established their quirks and flaws before plunging them into the game. Once there, all of them must learn to inhabit their video game roles to survive, meaning they have to confront the part of themselves with which they are the least comfortable. Spencer, an isolated, unconfident, and scrawny Street Fighter gamer, becomes the muscular leader that everyone relies on called Bravestone. Martha, reserved, judgmental, and unathletic, becomes Ruby Roundhouse, the confidently dressed fighter and man-killer. Fridge, the athletic, full of himself, and unstudious football player, becomes Finbar, a short, weak, but intelligent bagman. And Bethany, the vain popular girl addicted to posting selfie updates to social media from her phone, becomes Jack Black. The whole film is less about video games and Jumanji and more of a Freaky Friday body swap teenage comedy drama with dashes of jungle adventure. There's even some healthy cross-gender curiosity that can go overlooked in other body swap movies. Bethany has a penis. It's not taken too far, and I'm not even sure they said the word penis. The subject is broached as humbly and charmingly as one could ever expect, and the teens guide her through it. Much of Welcome to the Jungle's runtime is dedicated to the older performers acting like the younger cast, basically against their typecasting, and pausing for conversations with one another. The two boys now have the opposite physiques, but Kevin Hart's Fridge still acts amusingly imposing toward Dwayne Johnson's Spencer. Fridge needs some humility, and to realize the advantages of book smarts. Spencer has to break out of his lonely hermit shell and become a proactive leader. The two girls also have polar opposite roles now. Karen Gillan's Martha must embrace her body and femininity while discovering the point of athleticism, and Jack Black's Bethany has to overcome her self-image and phone obsession, living in the moment and developing consideration for those around her. It's all straightforward, but I was impressed with how much breathing room the filmmakers allowed for all of these characters to interact in funny and touching ways. While Jumanji Welcome to the Jungle isn't breaking any new ground, and some might even find it bland, It is a movie that cares about its characters. It's more excited to jump into another verbal fight, bonding pep talk, or uplifting breakthrough discussion than it is about the next action scene. In many ways, the video game jungle serves as an extended school detention, with these teens reflecting on their lives and aspirations. Considering how loose of a sequel the movie is to Jumanji, greedy marketeers might have more accurately dubbed it The Breakfast Club Welcome to the Jungle. Though closer to this film's spirit, I'd imagine there'd be way more backlash. To be clear, Welcome to the Jungle doesn't go as deep as The Breakfast Club. The filmmakers do not explore the reasons why and how these kids are the way they are. There's no tear-jerking confessions about how Fridge's dad expects too much and beats him, or how Spencer was abandoned by his dad and has no good male role model, or how Martha's mother died and her stepdad is always judging her, or how Bethany feels completely alone in her upper-class existence due to her parents never being home, so she posts to social media for the validation she never receives from them. Nothing like that. But they do criticize and help each other to grow. Their strengths and weaknesses in the game world provide an opportunity for them to reflect on their strengths and weaknesses in the real world. And the threat of the game world adds an urgency for these characters to help each other sort themselves out. Of the older actors, Karen Gillan, who I almost mistook for Britt Robertson, embodies her younger, real-life counterpart the best. Visually, she looks the most like her younger actress, but she also is great at portraying Martha's physical and emotional self-consciousness. Dwayne Johnson as Spencer knows how to look like a deer in headlights, stuck in his own head and freaking himself out with a solid, nervous energy. Kevin Hart as Fridge falls into his usual fast-talking Kevin Hart shtick, but he has a few serious, toned-down scenes to remind us he's playing someone else. And Jack Black as Bethany, while totally exaggerating teenage girl mannerisms, is a complete scene stealer. The weakest of the older cast is Nick Jonas, who doesn't appear until over halfway through the movie. I didn't think he brought much to his role, but he didn't hurt either. He was there. Charming, and Jack Black having a flirtatious girl crush on him was worth it. Having complimented the slower pacing with regard to character moments, I must confess that the jokes are not timed most effectively. Specifically in the first half of the film, there's a trade-off in the editing. This movie's casual, more atmospheric cutting style provides a greater sense of presence, but it isn't snappy enough for the comedy to land as hard as it could have. The scene in which the kids first arrive in Jumanji stands out. Spencer's reaction to his new biceps, Bethany reflecting on her new look, and everyone's confusion have a lot of breathing room in the finished film. While this makes their realizations more natural and relatable, it loses the potential quicker wit and fun sense of panic which the previews captured. There are numerous instances when I thought Welcome to the Jungle needed some trimming, and many may feel that the film drags quite a bit until it fully steps up its video game premise. Even then, there are some redundant moments. One character exclaims, "That can't be good!" followed immediately by another's, "There's no way that's good news!" Early on, someone amusingly repeats to the kids, "You must save Jumanji! You must save Jumanji! You must save Jumanji!" Right afterwards, when they're alone, one of them asks, "What are we supposed to do?" Then, Dwayne Johnson earnestly proclaims, "I think we have to save Jumanji." I don't know if this was intentional redundant humor, but the delivery was so hilariously sincere. I wish one of the other teens would have called him out on it. Like, no duh. About a third of the way into its runtime, Jumanji Welcome to the Jungle's pacing discovers its groove, with a more consistent balance between landing a punchline and creating ambiance. I say all this, but I've never actually had to edit a feature film. Still, I'm happy that they chose a more conservative, character-oriented structure, even if the film is a tad too long. What about the video game concept? It can lower the tension, and it's underutilized. Once inside the Jumanji game, the kids learn that they each have 3 lives, meaning that the first 2 times they are killed, they just respawn next to each other. But if they are killed 3 times, it is game over, and they die in the real world. This, coupled with the less imposing jungle, could defeat much sense to worry. It will depend how much you are invested in the performers, who act out their duress well. But until they are down to 1 life each, and even afterwards, It's mostly a fun, stress-free experience. In the original Jumanji, there is greater suspense because the creatures are coming out of the board game into the real world. The characters all have one real life, and the game's magic is threatening other real people in their town. In Welcome to the Jungle, no one besides the main characters are actual humans. The kids are free to let loose on the bad guys, and sometimes themselves, without moral consequence. Moreover, the video game premise is half-baked. There are humorous moments which reference NPCs, cutscenes, respawns, and player abilities, but there is a lack of terminology used by the teens, particularly Spencer. I would have loved to have heard Dwayne Johnson yell and complain, "What a bad spawn! That is OP!" Or, "The boomerang needs a nerf. Nerf the boomerang! Dwayne Johnson don't sound like that." A laundry list of potential gaming gags goes overlooked. There could have been another cutscene gag with the option to skip if everyone in the party agrees. Naturally, Spencer would have been interested in the story and refused to vote to skip the cutscene, holding up the gameplay. Additionally, there was no level up system with confusing skill trees, no clarification on their health bar mechanics, no avatar customization, no dialogue trees, no annoying inventory management, no bumping into invisible walls to keep them in the intended play area or from camping on top of objects, no loot drops from enemies or treasure chests, and no proper framing for the game's levels. This appears to be an open world game with various activities. It might have been fun to have the team perform a brief fetch quest and then realize it was completely irrelevant to the main story. The film is a bit too long already, but maybe 3 minutes. Most importantly, there was no 3-phase boss battle with shifting attack patterns and weak points, or for that matter, any boss battle at all. The main villain has a cool ability to control all the creatures of the jungle, but this is mostly displayed in small ways with his own henchmen. Our heroes don't even encounter him until the end of the film, and he lacks an intimidating, formidable presence, or even an outlandish one that's over the top and silly like most video games are, like, "I'm gonna get you," or something, or whatever. I don't even remember his name. No doubt, Welcome to the Jungle's video game elements are bare bones and safe. Probably to appeal to a wider audience by being more understandable and to maintain a balance for those just wanting to see the kids trapped in a real jungle because it's a Jumanji sequel. It is all surprisingly disciplined. The movie had the perfect excuse to go crazy with over-the-top CGI-heavy, unrealistic action scenes, but it impressively chose to focus on more grounded and practical stunt work and spectacle when possible, augmenting real location shooting in sets, but for one grand helicopter sequence that references the stampede from the original movie. Ultimately, the film's fantasy and video game setup was chosen primarily to communicate a great message about life for video gamers and social media types. Its characters interact and grow, culminating in a very sweet and heartwarming payoff. Even if it does contradict the ending of Jumanji 1, Jumanji Welcome to the Jungle is a bit slow in places, and it may have needed more pre-production time dedicated to its video game and jungle aspects, but the movie has the strongest foundation I've seen recently. It knows that characters are its bedrock. If Sony and the other studios learned something from the unexpected and huge success of this film, hopefully, it is not that people want more wilderness comedies or video game movies, though Ready Player One and Tomb Raider's box office performance may convince them otherwise later this year. No, people are responding so strongly because Jumanji Welcome to the Jungle is a really good, old-fashioned kids and family film. No politics or pretension. No excess CGI or pop culture references. No, it has solid performances and pacing that make you care, teaching universal lessons in introspection and humility while having a fun time. And above all, the movie is incredibly optimistic. I don't recall the last time I left the theater in such a positive state of mind, and I needed that. I give Jumanji Welcome to the Jungle 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. In the original... Sorry. Alright, now you want to do it seriously?